this episode of Scott Fox After 9. Today, we're going to talk about politics. Today, we got to talk about what happened yesterday. The premiers and the prime minister met yesterday, and they agreed on a list of nation-building projects. However, they won't tell us what they are yet. And I have some issues with that. So that's one of the things that's coming up on this episode. We're also going to talk a little bit about what happened in the House of Commons yesterday. This is bizarre. As the prime minister and the premiers were all meeting in Saskatoon, a vote was being held in the House of Commons. And as you likely know, we have a liberal minority government. Well, yesterday, the NDP, the Conservatives, and the Bloc all teamed up, and the Liberals lost the very first vote of theirs in the House. It's insane. The government that has a minority but claims they have a strong mandate lost their very first vote in the House of Commons, one calling on them to create a budget before the fall, due one this spring. It was a drama-filled day, and we'll get to some of that coming up here on this episode of Scott Fox After 9. Before we do, though, I'm going to bring in the great Anna Almeida for a second here, because Anna is not going to stick around for the whole episode, but there is something we need to talk about. Anna, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. We had a great radio show today.
Yes. You know what? It's so much fun working with you, especially when you get me in the know with Silent Date Guy. I'm so invested.
Silent Date Guy is becoming somewhat of a phenomenon.
He's a legend.
Yeah. I'm going to get people caught up, and then we're going to do a rare Tuesday edition of listener DMs that all have to do with Silent Date Guy. And the best part is, if you've got limited time for this episode, no problem. If you want the politics, fast forward about 10, 15 minutes, and I'll cover it. If you want Silent Date Guy, you got it right now.
Woo.
Here's where things stand. The catch up from yesterday, if you missed that episode. Last week, they went to the cottage.
Yes.
Tuesday, he didn't hear from her. Wednesday, didn't hear from her. Thursday, didn't hear from her. Friday, finally got a text message. Hey, I'm going to Niagara this weekend. Would you like to join me? He did. And I had one of the details wrong. See, Anna, this is why I tell you, give me time to make sure I've got my facts straight.
Minor detail.
I thought
Location.
it was Niagara Falls. I thought he was doing the sex over the falls thing like so many people have done it in the past.
Oh my gosh, I'm laughing because yes.
Everybody does it.
Everybody.
Hey, can I get a Falls View room?
Right.
I know why you want a Falls View room, because you want to bang and watch the falls. That's just the way it works.
Oh my gosh. When you say it out loud.
Nobody gets a Falls View room and doesn't have sex. That's just all there is to it. It just doesn't happen.
I'm going all shades of red because it's
so true, right?
Oh my gosh, it is. Wow.
Well, listen, they did something even better. Wasn't Niagara Falls, it was Niagara on the Lake. And for those who are not in Southern Ontario, maybe you don't know, there's Niagara Falls and Niagara on the Lake. Niagara on the Lake is wine country.
It's the best time.
Old town.
Yep.
It is beautiful. It is full of charm. It's easy to get to. It's accessible, but it's boring.
It closes early. The whole town.
Niagara on the Lake shuts down at like 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
You can't get an ice cream. You can't buy a bag of chips. You'll be lucky to find a bar that'll serve you a beer.
You're right.
It's really meant for people who want to have a nice day and then a quiet night.
Yep. Well,
so that's what they did, Anna. And I know that there's people with questions about what happened. And I'm going to answer those questions in this episode of Scott Fox After 9, but not all of them, because I'm here to announce tomorrow, once again, I will use musical accompaniment.
I love this so much.
To describe how their evening went.
I can't listen to some of those songs you chose for the our last conversation where you used music to, disclose their time together because it was so good. You're a musical genius.
It's going to happen in tomorrow's episode.
Tomorrow.
But I can't leave you guys until then.
Thank you.
There is some listener DMs that I want to get to, and some of these theories are wild. So, Anna, why don't you start off with the DMs?
Happily. Happy? Okay.
Happy?
Happy? I'm happy. I'm happy for him.
So why again would you get a Falls View room?
Oh my gosh, I know. I feel very seen. Okay, I'll leave it there. We get a text, a message, a DM from Emma. She writes, Anna is 100% right. Your friend's girl not reaching out is a major red flag. Remember, if they wanted to, they would. Thank you, Emma. That's very true.
Emma, okay, so this is a bone of contention for Anna.
It is.
Anna thinks that because he doesn't hear from her during the week, that's a red flag. Is that a red flag, or is it possible that maybe she's just busy. And when she wants to have a social life, it's mainly going to be on weekends.
It literally takes a second to write somebody back and said, thank you, got your message, super busy. That's it. It's just courtesy. It's kind. Instead of leaving somebody on red.
Okay.
That's my theory.
Is it rude or is it a red flag?
It's both. It can be both.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Sure.
Okay. Emma continues on with, also, Dr. David Nutt is no random researcher.
This is the doctor we talked about
with the
yesterday
wine.
who said you should have no more than 1 glass of wine per year.
Yeah. Okay, buddy.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Yeah, no doubt.
Piece of
I have 2. All right. So he's a professor and pioneer in the synthetic alcohol space, a product that is supposed to reduce hangovers and reduce or eliminate liver cirrhosis and kidney disease due to alcohol consumption. His company is called Alcosint, now named Alcarella. So,
all right. So
he has a strong reputation.
Anna, this is exactly what I mean by the media not telling you the whole story. Every media outlet ran with that story yesterday. Oh, research says you should only have 1 glass of wine a year. Okay, well, who did the research? Thank you to this person for pointing out, because I didn't know this either. Thank you for pointing out. This guy has a vested interest in making sure you don't drink alcohol because he's the guy behind synthetic alcohol.
Yeah, which I didn't even know was a real thing.
That's an important detail that you would think the media would point out to people. Now, again, I don't have the resources of the CBC or CTV. I'm glad I've just got a great, smart audience that'll call me out on stuff. Thank you for telling me that about the good doctor there. I don't know why the mainstream media didn't mention that because, again, that's an important caveat.
Yeah, it makes you scared to have more than 1 glass, but the Mediterranean diet would say otherwise.
Oh, you know what? As far as I'm concerned, wine all day and all night. You know,
Yes.
Doctors prescribe it. Like my dad is still hanging on to a diagnosis from like 15 years ago where his doctor said after a heart procedure, you should drink some red wine. So he's like, all right, doctor's orders. And now he drinks like 2 glasses a night, minimum.
Listen, the longevity, when you hear those people who reach 100 years old, what was your secret? I had a glass of wine every day.
Wine and whiskey.
There you go.
Doesn't it make sense, though? Like if you've got something in you, like an infection or something like that, alcohol kills those things.
Well, that's how you treated things before there were big pharmaceutical giants back in the day, before you had access to anything.
There's a reason that our grandparents lived as long as they did.
Know.
And they weren't as conscious of their health as we all are.
They definitely weren't.
They weren't watching their salt or their red meat intake. They weren't counting calories. They were just active.
Yeah, I barely saw vegetables on the table. All right, next up we have Charlene who DM'd, "Hey Scott, are you sure Silent Date Girl isn't hot wifey?" And that she's actually not divorced. So hot wifing? That's something different. So I had to Google it myself when I saw your DM. Do you know what it is?
Yeah, tell me. I'm Googling it too.
Okay, so I Googled it just to make sure. She wrote, it's a wife who has multiple sexual partners with her husband's consent as a hot wife. So she's hot wifing. So that's what Charlene believes is happening with Silent Date Girl.
Charlene, that's an interesting theory. Is she hot wifing?
Yeah.
Now, there is an ex-husband, and he is still in the picture. For example, when they went to the cottage last weekend, the boyfriend, or the former husband, the ex-husband, was there. But he was in the next cottage watching the kid, while she was in her cottage with my friend.
Oh my gosh, maybe.
Hot wifing.
Maybe because he's right next door, and then maybe she's allowed to do what she wants to do on the weekend, and he's not far.
How does that work? How do you bring that up in your relationship? How do you suggest to your wife, or how do you suggest to your husband, we should do some hot wifing? I'm a good-looking girl. I want to go out and bang other people.
I know.
How do you bring that up to your husband?
And let's say this is actually what's going on. I feel like her husband, first of all, would not appreciate the sentiment, but then also she's gifting him expensive gifts on top of it.
Yeah, she did. Did I tell on the air? It was just on the radio.
Radio, yeah. I think you mentioned it yesterday in the pod, but you didn't confirm.
Okay, I did find out what she gave him. I knew it was a watch.
Yeah.
But I thought, that might be an expensive watch. Send me the details. So he sent it to me. Anna, that's a $700 watch she bought him.
That's wild.
$700 Garmin Approach GPS watch for golfing.
GPS. Oh, maybe just tracking his his whereabouts now.
Well, if he's standing on a fairway, she'd be able to find him. However, it was a golf watch, and it's a beauty, Anna.
Well, that leads me to this next DM from Rob. Sounds like your buddy might have hooked himself a sugar mama. Good on him. I also got to admit, I'm more invested in this story than I should be.
I think there's a lot of people who didn't want to go down this rabbit hole, but here we are.
I know.
You find yourself in it. I love it personally because I know him, and I think that it is so funny that so many people are fixated on this regular run-of-the-mill normal guy's dating life.
Has he had any sort of luck like this in the past?
No, since he got divorced, he's been trying to find somebody online. He went on like a couple of dates, but he was getting catfished and no-shows like you wouldn't believe. It was not going well for him. In fact, I think he was going to get out of the dating pool altogether had he not met this girl.
Wow. Okay. And Karen, she says, your buddy has turned into an F-boy.
Maybe.
Right?
Maybe. Hey, it's possible. So
he doesn't mind.
This woman doesn't seem to have much interest in him throughout the week. But on the weekends, she's like, hey, let's go here. Let's go there. And she's buying. I mean, she's picking up the tab for dinner. She's buying him a $700 watch.
Wow.
She's paying for cottages and hotels. She's got money invested into this situationship, whatever it is.
Was he not put off, though, that she gave him this watch on their third date? It's not a run-of-the-mill watch that you get at, for $30 at Winners. This is a $700 watch.
Yeah, it's a beauty. So,
Yes.
well, how do you respond? He wasn't expecting a gift. That wasn't even on his radar. He hadn't talked to her in days. He doesn't even know what's going on. She pulls out the watch, and it's a nice watch, so he said thank you, but he felt bad that he didn't have anything to give her. She was totally okay with it. She wanted to see him. In fact, she told him, put it on. Let me see it on you.
Oh, my gosh. And so he was happy to accept it.
He happily accepted it.
And he's wearing it.
Does he have to buy her something now? Or is it just, it is what it is? She buys him expensive gifts.
It is what it is, but maybe on the fourth date he'd get her something. But how do you even match that? Do you get something more expensive than the watch? Do you
Hold on. How does it work in sugar daddy relationships?
I've never been in one. I don't know.
I was going to say, try and imagine what it might be like if the sugar daddy keeps hooking up and gifting the girl with expensive stuff. Does she ever feel compelled to buy him something? Other than birthdays and Valentine's Day and stuff like that?
So I had a friend, and it wasn't so much a sugar daddy, but there was this site online when she lived out on a different coast, and she would get paid to go on dinner dates with them, and they'd pay for everything, and they'd pay her to sit with them. And so she did really well.
No sex?
Nothing.
Just to be a companion.
Just to be a companion.
Interesting.
I
like
know.
an actual escort. Not an escort.
But not an escort, but providing a service and sitting with them. So, and they didn't expect anything. Yeah.
If it's something had happened, would they have been okay with it?
It depends on if they were good looking.
That's weird. What makes you think, this is a good way to earn money? I'm going to have dinner with strangers and they're going to pay me
get a job.
For a sexual thing, but in a non-sexual way.
Exactly. They just wanted to be seen with a beautiful woman at a fancy restaurant where it's populated. And and that was it. They paid, literally, she showed up, met him there, and they had dinner. They stayed for dessert. He paid for everything. And then he would transfer the money. Legit. This is like a legit thing.
I wonder if there's a lot of people doing that.
There are.
I wonder how you get involved in something like that.
Word of mouth, truly. Because I was like, oh man, that's a really nice way to make some money and get some good food out of it.
Would you have done that too?
No, because I think of my dad. I think of the embarrassment of that he would feel. But I don't think you should be embarrassed. Nothing's happening if you're making an honest living.
On some level, is that prostitution or no? Because there's no sex involved.
There's no sex involved.
You're just paying for companionship.
Yeah, it's kind of like going on a blind date multiple times a week.
Interesting. Right? Oh, she did this multiple times a week with different guys.
Yes.
And no sex.
Nothing. Not one time.
How hot is she? What does she look like?
Oh, she's so hot.
Really?
Yeah, she's beautiful.
I can't even imagine. It's amazing to me how some people have a side hustle, and that, I guess, is a bona fide side hustle.
It's pretty impressive. But if I was in your friend's shoes and I said to you, this guy who ghosts me during the week, I showed up in Niagara, he gave me a Louis Vuitton purse, would you be weirded out at all? Like, would you suggest I give him a gift the next time we get together?
No.
No. Oh, I love that. Okay, great.
No, I don't think that he needs to feel compelled to reciprocate. Right now, he doesn't know what's going on, but I do want to remind everybody, he's an adult. She is an adult. If she wants to spend her hard-earned money buying gifts for an F-boy, okay, sure. If she thinks this is going somewhere and this is part of the way that she gets there, okay, sure. I'm good with it. They're consenting adults going in eyes wide open. I think this is fine. And I don't think that he needs to feel compelled to buy her a gift. Although I did suggest you should probably at least buy her flowers or something.
That's nice. Yeah, that'll make her feel special regardless of the situation that they're in. And we head into this last DM for you. I just want to ask before we go into it, just because I'm nosy, do they have deep conversations when they're together? Has he ever said that they get to know each other? Do they talk?
Save that for tomorrow. Because I've got a perfect song to describe what they talk about.
Okay, you got me hooked.
That's tomorrow's episode.
Okay, well, this last DM is from Gazelle, who writes, okay, I'm hooked on this story more than audiobooks. I pay for a monthly subscription.
You're going to start charging for this pod.
I'm telling you. Business idea for you. Start reading for audiobooks. Your voice is fantastic. That's besides the point. This situationship your friend has gotten himself into is strange. I guess when they're talking on the app, they'd have to ask each other what each other are looking for. Is she looking for a relationship or a situationship or something else? It seems like she's doing all the courting and he's just there for the ride. Okay. To each their own.
I think it was her that got the ride.
Save it for the pod tomorrow. Save it for the pod.
Right.
All right.
I don't know what song I'm going to use for that one.
Oh my gosh, I know there are good ones out there. All right, but she continues on with, I do think it's strange that she's bringing him presents and paying for their dates and sleeping with him right off the bat. Something is off. Also, I'm not against online dating. That's how I met my husband, but her behavior is strange. I can't wait to hear tomorrow's episode.
Okay. Listen, I'm not telling the whole story today because I do have some other things to do, and I do want to get some of the national stuff on the pod, because I think that some of the things that have happened in the last 24 to 48 hours are going to be important footnotes in our history down the line. So I want to get those out there. But I also recognize there's people who want to know. So tomorrow, I'll dedicate a few minutes in the pod to telling you the story of what happened in Niagara-on-the-Lake.
I want to know what they're talking about.
This past weekend. I know what they talk about. I know what they did. I know the costumes she brought. I know...
Whoa! You're going to make me wait till tomorrow. She brings costumes?
A costume. A costume.
A costume. This is wild. I don't even know what to make of this. This story just keeps getting better and better. I'm so invested, and I don't even know these people.
I'm going to tell you the whole story tomorrow. How's that, Anna?
No, I want it now. I don't want to wait. I hate waiting.
I had no idea hot wifing was a thing. I got to close this window here because I don't want to think about that anymore. All right. Anna, thank you very much for listener DMs. I appreciate it. Tomorrow you're in. You're going to hear the whole story, and I will do it with musical accompaniment. Sound good?
I can't wait. All right.
By the way, quickly, let me ask you just a quick philosophical question. If you are running to be prime minister, and you only get a minority government, does that give you the right to say you have a strong mandate?
I would like to say yes.
Because they won?
Yes.
But they don't have a majority. You still think they have a mandate?
Yeah, because you want to feel powerful. So yes.
Maybe if that was me, I'd say I have a strong mandate too. I don't know.
What I mean? I'm the prime minister.
Let's get to yesterday. It was the first ministers meeting with the prime minister in Saskatoon, talking about projects of national interest, projects that are nation building. Here's the prime minister.
I also want to thank the premiers for their support, their consistent, unwavering, constructive support in our response to the unjustified and unlawful tariffs that the U.S. is still imposing on Canada. We are fighting to get the best deal for Canada. That work is ongoing. Minister LeBlanc will be headed to Washington this evening to continue negotiations. We're also focused on building nation-building projects, and that took up much of our discussion today. I outlined during the meetings the central contribution of the federal government to this mission, first and foremost to eliminate all remaining federal barriers to internal trade and labor mobility, and to enable the federal government, working with the provinces, the territories, Indigenous peoples, to identify and expedite nation-building projects. To be deemed in the national interest, those projects should, amongst others, strengthen the Canadian economy, strengthen our autonomy, our resilience, and our security, provide undeniable benefits to Canada, have a high likelihood of successful execution, be a high priority for Indigenous leaders, and to drive Canada's clean growth potential.
There's just a little bit of Prime Minister Mark Carney yesterday, the closing news conference after he had a closed-door meeting with all of the premiers. And yesterday's meeting, I think, was a historic one because I'm sure that 40, 50 years down the line, people are going to look back and ask, how did we get here? How did we end up with the Ring of Fire being mined? How did we end up with a tunnel under the 401? How did we end up with pipelines to all three coasts? How did all that happen? Somebody will say, it began on June 2nd, 2025, when all of our first ministers got together. That's if those things get built. And frankly, I'm not sure that they're going to. You know, I watched this news conference yesterday, and I'm going to play a decent amount of this for you because I think this is historic. And I think that every Canadian has a stake in this because these first ministers, the premiers and the prime minister, they're going to be spending hundreds of billions of our dollars, hundreds of billions on these various projects. Every province has a wish list of things they'd like to see. The federal government and the provincial governments are going to spend hundreds of billions of money that we just do not have. We don't have it here in Canada, but we need some of these things done. So what do? Does government build it? Or do we just create the conditions for the private sector to recognize an opportunity to make money and let them build it? Now, I'm leaning, as you can probably tell, more toward the private sector. I don't think government is very good at building things, and I don't think they're very good with our money either. So I would be quite content to just create the conditions and let the private sector do it. But I'm not sure that that's what's going to happen here. I'm really not sure. And I'm not sure about some of the environmental caveats that the Prime Minister is going to talk about coming up in just a sec. Let's hear a little bit more of the Prime Minister. I'm playing as much as I can here because you did not see a lot of this last night on the news.
Under a new process, once a project is designated as being in the country's national interest, a new federal major project office will bring together all relevant federal departments to provide a single set of conditions that must be met for those projects to advance. And the commitment is to proceed with the approval process for a maximum of 2 years under a new streamlined process that prioritizes federal resources to these most important projects. We will also work towards one project, one review, including through new cooperation agreements with the provinces.
Let me pause right there because we've heard some interesting things just in that statement from Prime Minister Carney. I guess we're creating a new bureaucracy, another new bureaucracy, the office that's going to oversee these projects. Okay. You know, one of the things I distinctly remember Prime Minister Carney talking about during the election campaign is we've got to do things at speeds previously not thought possible. One approval should be enough to get these projects built. Okay, well, why would that take 2 years? If we recognize how essential some of these nation-building projects are, why would we have to run them through a government bureaucracy, run them through this extra approval process, if that is even what happens, and why would it take 2 years before we can even talk about getting a shovel in the ground? 2 years just in approvals. To me, that doesn't sound like something that is ready to go. That doesn't sound like a government that is serious about getting these projects built. When I hear nation-building projects, things that need to be done urgently to try and help us fight off the Americans, I think we've got to move at lightning speed. 2 years just to get approvals? Hey, that's a big improvement. It takes a lot longer than that right now, but it's still too long. You're telling me June 2027 before someone can even know if they'll be allowed to proceed with the project. We're not going to have anything built till 2040. And frankly, we don't have that kind of time. Here's a little bit more from the Prime Minister.
Point is to build the certainty, the stability, and the ambition that builders need to catalyze enormous investment to make Canada into an energy superpower and to build the strongest economy in the G7. We had wide-ranging discussions. There was a lot of preparation for this meeting. We discussed a wide range of potential nation-building projects, including, and this is far from exhaustive, the Western and Arctic Corridor, which, amongst other things, connects energy, critical minerals, and trade infrastructure, the Eastern Energy Partnership, critical minerals pathways, which include a range of critical mineral projects that premiers can speak to, the next stage of nuclear from uranium to SMRs to large-scale nuclear, and a series of infrastructure investments for export diversification from ports to rails to last-mile roads. All First Ministers agreed that Indigenous partnerships and equity will be central to success. And upcoming federal legislation will mandate both meaningful consultation with Indigenous peoples, both during the process of determining which projects are in the national interest and developing the conditions for each project. The goal here is to get projects built faster so we can create more high-paying careers and greater prosperity for all Canadians.
I'll leave Prime Minister Mark Carney there, and I'm going to get to Premier Doug Ford coming up in just a sec. But let's circle back on that last part there. The Prime Minister, rightfully so, this is something we're obligated to do as a nation, says there will be extensive consultation with First Nations communities. Absolutely. Yeah, there should be. Frankly, I don't know what there is to discuss if we give them a good offer. First Nations people want to prosper as well. One of the things that came up during the election campaign was First Nations approval of various projects. Pierre Poilievre had a theory that First Nations will be much more behind projects if it's also beneficial to them. We're not just going to railroad them and run a pipeline through their territory without their approval. You know, if that pipeline generates a lot of revenue and creates a lot of jobs and prosperity for that First Nation, I don't know why they would be opposed to it. And I think that we're going to have to start looking at projects that way. How we can not just get approval from First Nations, but how we can make them partners in these projects. I think that's going to be essential. I'm glad to hear that the premiers are on side with that. But you could also look at it the other way. Let's say, for example, and this is just a hypothetical pie in the sky. Let's say Mark Carney is out here right now pretending he's in favor of pipelines. And he says, we're going to go all in on pipelines. Is that what you want, Alberta? Sure, no problem. We will build pipelines. But he's not really in favor of pipelines, and he knows that as soon as it gets to approval from First Nations communities, they're going to kibosh the whole thing. And then he doesn't have to look like the bad guy. Is that possible? Well, I guess we don't have to speculate. We'll find out soon enough, presumably within the next 2 years. How Mr. Carney truly feels about pipelines. I have not heard a commitment from him yet to repeal the anti-pipeline law. He won't say he'll do it. And I'm not quite sure why, because I thought the whole point of these nation-building projects was to build projects that create jobs and create prosperity for Canadians. We could all be a lot more prosperous if we sold our oil and natural gas. It could also be an incredible environmental bonus. The whole world could enjoy lower carbon emissions if we had Canadian natural gas displacing some of the coal that some countries are using. There's a lot of great ways to look at it, but there's also a downside. You could use this, what sounds like a great idea, to get out of doing something you don't want to do. And in the back of my mind, I'm a little bit afraid that that might be what Prime Minister Carney is doing right here. So you heard a little bit of the Prime Minister, actually a decent amount. I tried to play more than you saw in the news last night because I maintain that you still don't get the whole story watching the mainstream media. So now that we've heard from the Prime Minister, let's hear from Ontario Premier Doug Ford, who was the first Premier to speak after the PM yesterday.
Well, thank you so much, Prime Minister, for bringing us together. It was a very productive meeting. I also want to thank Premier Mo for your hospitality. We had a great time over the last couple of days, a lot of discussions moving forward. So I also want to thank all the premiers. We have an incredible group of premiers. We are united. We're going to move this country forward, the likes of which this country's never seen before. And how we're going to do this is making sure that we don't have federal duplication. As the Prime Minister said, let's get it done quick, fast, immediate, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Let's not forget that President Trump has declared an economic war on every single business, every single person in this country. And we need to do everything we can to fight against him. Again, what the Prime Minister said, and I agree, an illegal trade war. And I think the President's going to have a rude awakening. We're going to unleash our strengths, and that's be it mining, the pipelines across the country, infrastructure, roads, bridges, highways, and specifically the road to the Ring of Fire. So we had that discussion, and as I mentioned earlier on, the last couple times I talked to the press that, nothing's carved in stone at this meeting. There was great discussions because I know the first question is going to be, what are the exact projects? I have all the confidence in the world. The Prime Minister and his team are going to bring back the list. They're going to sit down. They're going to discuss it to build these large national infrastructure projects from coast to coast to coast. The other area that we spoke about was bail reform.
Okay, before we get to that, because I'm very interested in bail reform, I think most Canadians are, because we're in the middle of a pretty serious crime wave right now. It's insane, some of the things that are going on. But let's circle back here. Doug Ford said that Donald Trump is going to regret this. When we start cranking out oil, natural gas, and mining, he's going to regret that he did this with the tariffs. I mean, he's going to be almost done his last term as president by the time we even get the approvals done. We won't even have a shovel in the ground by the time Donald Trump is no longer the president. By the time the road to the Ring of Fire is done, Donald Trump will probably have been dead and buried for about 15 years. Seriously, I don't know that he's going to regret it. And I'm also not sure how long Canada can hang on as we're going right now without a deal with the Americans. I still think that while this is all great that you're going to try and build a road to the Ring of Fire. We need that. If we're going to mine it, we have to get a way to get those materials down to where we can distribute it, which is likely going to be in southern Ontario or in Manitoba, depending on the shortest route out of the Ring of Fire. It's in central northern Ontario. I don't know if we can hang on that long. It's going to take a heck of a long time to get that road built. It's going to take a long time to get these pipelines built and get tankers into the bay, shipping this oil and this natural gas around the world. It's going to take a long time. And I haven't really heard anybody talk about what we do until these things are built. We have to come up with a deal with the Americans quick. Something to at least allow us to tread water until these major infrastructure projects are done. That's the way I see it anyway. I do want to hear what the Premier had to say about bail reform. Here we go.
It's absolutely critical we keep our communities safe. It's each and every one of our jobs to protect communities, and that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to make sure the real bad guys, these violent criminals, go to jail. And people may have a drug addiction. We're going to support them. I'm not worried about them committing crimes as much as I am the criminals that are coming in from all over the country, all over the world, flying in and causing chaos in neighborhoods. And I'll speak just about Ontario on that issue there. But again, Prime Minister, I want to thank you. Working collaboratively and cooperating with all the premiers. I'm very, very confident. I want to tell the people of Canada, and in my case, the people of Ontario, there's hope. We're going to look at how we're going to move forward and implement as quickly as possible prosperity in our province and across the country. Again, I want to thank you, and I'll pass it back to you, Prime Minister.
Okay, why did we not hear a little bit more there? Premier Ford saying something kind of bizarre. I've never heard that. Are there people flying into Canada to commit crimes and then taking off again? Is that how this works? And we really don't care about crimes committed by people on drugs with drug addiction. I'm really kind of confused about what the premier was saying there. I don't know if that was in his script or if that was off script, Doug, or what the hell's going on there. A little bit random, if you ask me, but hopefully someone will ask him for a little more clarification on where he thinks the crime is coming from right now. If I were going to take on the issue of crime right now, bail reform is certainly one of them. And we've also got to repeal, it's got to go, the Youth Criminal Justice Act, because there's far too many young people who have been offered prosperity by committing a few criminal acts on behalf of some bad actors, and they can get away with it because they're protected under the Youth Criminal Justice Act. They're really not going to serve any hard time. They won't have a record after they turn 18. It's a very appealing thing for young people to join these gangs and these organized crime units. They commit the crimes on behalf of the organized crime, and the consequences are almost nil. So we really have to tackle that as well. That's something that I would expect to hear from someone who wants to talk about reforming our justice system, but nobody seems to want to talk about repealing or updating the Youth Criminal Justice Act. But that's a big problem right there. Bail reform? Sure. Again, I don't know why it came up during this news conference, but there we go. Interesting that they're at least talking about it at the federal level. Now, as for this, and I'm going to play Premier Danielle Smith from Alberta coming up in a second, it seems like this could have been an email. It seems like it could have been an email. Great that we've got all the premiers and the prime minister together. Great. I'm glad they talked, but it seems like Mark Carney was only there to collect the province's list, their wish list of infrastructure projects that they would like done. And then he's going to take it back to Ottawa, run it by whoever he has to run it by, presumably the cabinet, and then they're going to say which projects we're going to build. I mean, that's all well and good, but I don't know why the premiers are not more forceful in this. Alberta is driving home the point. Ottawa's got to start working for the provinces. Alberta has got a list of things that they expect to get done here, and if they don't get done, that's going to be a serious challenge to our national unity. Ontario's got the exact same leverage. We just don't seem to be flexing it. As far as I'm concerned, if I'm Doug Ford and I tell Mark Carney, we need a road to the Ring of Fire, stop screwing around with approvals and assessments and all these other things. It's a road. Give me 2 lanes in each direction, and I want to start building it in the next 6 months. I want to have it done in 2 years. Done in 2 years, not approved in 2 years. If the prime minister says no, does Doug realize he's got leverage? He can play the feds exactly how Alberta is. I don't know that Alberta actually wants to leave. The polls say slight majority of people don't want to leave, but that could change on a dime. If Ottawa says, we thought about it and now we're just not going to build these pipelines. Yeah, we couldn't get agreement from the First Nations and we want to keep it in the ground anyway, so we're not going to build pipelines. Goodbye, Alberta. They're gone. Ontario could flex that kind of leverage too, but we don't. And frankly, I'm not sure why. It's time to get serious here. These things need to get done. And frankly, it's not up to Ottawa what gets done in Alberta or what gets done in Ontario. Because if they don't want to get on board, then they can just get out of the way. And if they don't like that, bye. I don't want to see the destruction of Canada either, but it's time to advance our own interests here, not just the national interest. Ontario's got a lot more riding on this than most provinces do. Alberta is in a very similar predicament. The government needs to work for us, including for the provinces. Now let's get to a little bit of Alberta Premier Danielle Smith.
Premier Smith, perhaps you'd like to respond. If I'm understanding correctly, Prime Minister, you are saying that you would fast track a project involving decarbonized oil through pipelines, decarbonized energy. And is that something that, Premier Smith, that you agree with, or do you feel that we need to get the bitumen out of the ground now as soon as possible?
Well, let's call it the grand bargain, that we know that there is a group of oil sands companies that have been advocating for some time for what they call the Pathways Project that would decarbonize the production of their bitumen through the use of carbon capture, utilization and storage, ultimately using hydroelectric or small modular nuclear to decarbonize, and then direct air capture for the last mile. I think the point I was making to the Prime Minister and my colleagues is that there's lots of ways to decarbonize, but the Pathways project is an expensive project. It would cost anywhere from $10 to $20 billion to get built. And to make the economic case for that, having more egress with more barrels to be sold to Asia is the way to pay for it. If we had a 1 million barrel a day pipeline going to the Northwest BC coast, that would generate about $20 billion a year in revenues. And so that seems like a pretty good value proposition if both of those projects can proceed at once.
Interesting. Oil with no carbon. I don't know how that works. I have no idea what they're talking about. I guess there's some sort of technology that they want to put in. And Carney, of course, will be in favor of oil if it's low carbon oil because he's still very much an environmentalist. Is that really where we need to be and what the focus should be right now? Or should we build the damn pipelines, start shipping out that oil, and once that oil is going out and the revenue is coming in and other countries are improving their environmental footprint because they're off of coal and they're using clean Canadian oil and natural gas. We're already making a difference right then and there. Then if we want to go down the road of decarbonizing our oil, then we can look at reformulating the oil. We can look at doing whatever it is they want to do to decarbonize it. Get the pipeline built first and foremost. Then we can talk about the niceties and the extras. But we need that revenue. The world needs more Canada. We need to get these things built, and I really, really hope the Prime Minister is not going to stand in the way of that. I think it would be crazy if he did. And I also don't think Alberta is going to stand for that either. I'm going to play another clip from Premier Smith in a second. First off, as the Q&A with reporters continued, here's another one from Ontario Premier Doug Ford.
Premier Ford.
Well, let me tell you, I'm going to be very blunt here. This has been the best meeting we've had in 10 years. Simple. Best meeting I've had in 7 years. And there was no expectations that the Prime Minister was going to come out and say, you get that project, you get that project. It was a great discussion. Now, we were all talking. Now it's time to put it into action. All of us are responsible. But I thought it was an incredible meeting, great communication, great collaboration, and we all walked out of that room united. And that's the most important thing. Now the Prime Minister is going to go to work, get the legislation passed, and we'll divvy it up. I described him today as Santa Claus. He's coming, and his sled was full of all sorts of stuff. Now he's taking off back to the North Pole. He's going to sort it out, and then he's going to call us. So, and we're building a short of Santa Claus is my big belly. I got to loan it to him.
Oh, Jesus. Okay, I mean, first off, I don't understand why you would go to this meeting unless you had a commitment that once we give you the list of what we as a province deem are projects of national interest, the ones that we need done, it's just going to get done. I mean, right now, Santa Claus, as Doug called him, and no, I don't think that that's how Santa Claus works traditionally. However, I get that he was going for a laugh in the room, probably necessary and overdue. However, I don't understand why any of these premiers are satisfied right now. So you show up and you have a meeting. Good. I think we should talk face to face more than we currently do. Great that you had a meeting, but when you handed over that list, when you said this is what Ontario wants, we want a road to the Ring of Fire, we want the ability to sell small nuclear reactors, we want a tunnel under the 401, and we want a bridge across Lake Huron or something like that. I would expect those are going to get done. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's going to get done. We're not asking, we're telling you. Alberta's on the right track. Alberta can write their own ticket because Ottawa either does it or Alberta's got leverage. I don't understand why we're playing this game here. It seems like all of these premiers are quite satisfied with mediocrity. Well, we gave him our list and now it's up to him. No, it's not up to him. You get it done. And frankly, if Ottawa tries to get in the way, get rid of Ottawa. I will say, though, they do seem quite happy to have had this meeting with Prime Minister Carney. It got me wondering yesterday, how bad was the situation with Justin Trudeau? You know, it seems like Carney is a smart guy. He understands what the premiers are saying, and the premiers understand what he's saying. Justin Trudeau was not even on the same planet. He doesn't understand some of the stuff that came up in that meeting. It's about time we got a prime minister who's qualified for the job. But it's got to remind you that no wonder Alberta is angry. For the last 10 years, they've had to deal with Trudeau. who said no to everything. That's part of the reason that we're in the situation we're in. I do want to get to one more question for Alberta Premier Danielle Smith.
And what I heard from the Prime Minister is that, it's up to us to find the proponent, I think. I think if there's some certainty that a process is going to be successful in a reasonable period of time, a 2-year window, I think that there will be a proponent that will step forward. My view would be that we'll have failed at the assignment if government has to build another pipeline. That will demonstrate to us that we didn't create the conditions for private investment to come to the table. So I'm encouraged that the Prime Minister is prepared to do a 2-track process. Let's identify a project and a window and work towards identifying the ways, some of the barriers that have been in the way of the current regulatory process, at the same time as working on fixing the regulatory process so that it makes future projects easier to approve. I think the reason we have to have a fast track is because we know that there are barriers. And so if we can kickstart it and have a dual track, I think that we may be able to achieve the outcome. We'll know in a couple of months' time, hopefully, whether this new approach is going to work, but I think it's worth giving it a try.
Okay, good words there from Premier Danielle Smith, who's saying the obvious. If the government creates the conditions for some private entity to come in, some oil company that says, you know what, we want to build the pipeline because we recognize that will be an extremely lucrative investment in the long term. We're willing to put up billions now because we'll make billions in profit when it's done. That's exactly what we need to do. Is there any scenario, though, where the federal government may say, well, we're just going to build the pipeline ourselves and we'll own that one too? Doesn't seem that way. Here's the Prime Minister.
Look, it's not a decision. It's not a decision we have to make today. I think what's clear, be absolutely clear. We're saying, and this is consistent. This is consistent with the agreement we had as First Ministers back in March when we met in Ottawa, when we talked about energy and trade corridors. It had a little less focus because we hadn't translated that into a legislative initiative and more specifics about projects. But there is an ability to build that energy infrastructure, that oil pipeline. I'm going to refer to my earlier answer and to Premier Smith's answer moments ago about a grand bargain, decarbonizing the barrels, various ways to do that. I agree with her. And so the opportunity is there. The market is there in Asia. It is within, last point, it is within a bigger framework that the Western premiers and the territorial premiers have come up with, which is the Western Arctic Corridor. So it's much more than that, and sometimes the discussion is reduced far too much to one type of project. It's important, but the range of what we're discussing is much, much bigger than that. And if I can just finish with this is the point for the country. Our ambitions must be bigger and broader, and what we heard today, what we discussed today, was entirely consistent with that. Big, broad ambitions consistent with having the strongest economy in the G7 and being an energy superpower.
Okay, I'll leave it at that. I don't want to crap all over this. I think that it's nice that they met. I just don't appreciate that they won't even tell us what the projects are. I don't understand why that's some national secret. I don't know why the public couldn't understand that. I don't know why we're not allowed to know what it is they're working on here. Crazy to me. The Prime Minister with a very much word salad answer there. You could tell he did not want to talk about whether or not the government would build a pipeline or whether this is going to be something that's going to be left to the private sector. So that remains to be seen. Listen, the thought here is great. The sentiment is good. Everybody's swimming in the same direction. We're going to build these massive projects. But nobody is talking about the two elephants in the room. The astronomical cost of doing these things. Astronomical. Hundreds of billions of dollars to be spent on these various projects. And that's combined with all the other things that we've said we've got to spend money on. Things like military and defense and so on and so forth. Border security. Where's all the money coming from? Where is the money coming from? How is that going to work? Because if we're going to start printing billions, we know what printing money does as far as inflation is concerned, and Canadians are getting rocked by inflation right now. That's the reason the interest rates went up. We all understand that. We're getting rocked. So I want to know details about how that's going to get done, and I want to know how quickly. You know, it's all well and good to say, we'll build a road to the Ring of Fire. We'll build a pipeline to here and there and everywhere. When? If these people with a straight face are saying we're going to have the strongest economy in the G7, and then also telling you it'll take 2 years just to approve a project, they're not serious people. That's not moving at speeds previously unthought possible. It's just not. We need more. I'm challenging the Prime Minister and all of the premiers. Take these good intentions that you guys have got and put them on steroids, because we can't wait any longer. Get shovels in the ground right now and lay out for the Canadian people how you're going to pay for it. I'm going to leave the First Minister's meeting there because there is something else I want to play. Yesterday, the beginning of Pride Month in Toronto, Toronto Mayor Olivia Chow gave a very nonsensical news conference. Listen to a little bit of this. Cringe.
Now, we've all seen the depressing news. Pride Toronto have lost some corporate sponsor because they just don't know who they are. They're short-sighted. They don't know who they are. And
that is the mayor pointing out that many corporate sponsors have pulled out of Pride. They're just not interested in kicking in their money anymore for a lot of different reasons. I don't think Home Depot is unsure of who they are. I don't think Home Depot is short-sighted. I also don't think that about RBC or any of the other companies that have pulled back on their Pride funding. What's the real reason that some of these major corporate giants that used to be all in on sponsoring Pride, what's the real reason they've pulled out? Is it because Pride has become far too political? Is it because Pride in the last couple of years has become very, very unwelcoming for a lot of people? That could have something to do with it, Olivia. So what are you going to do about it?
the first round of corporate cuts, about $300,000, the city of Toronto said, you know what? We're going to come to the table. We will provide a grant that is $350,000 and every year for 5 years, 62% increasing the funding by 2027. Yeah, that's our commitment to you.
Well, Toronto, that's what you voted for. That's what you voted for in Toronto. There's where your tax dollars are going. When you make those quarterly tax installments, you just remember Olivia Chow's got a plan for your money, and it's going to be funding Pride. I don't think that that's what people want. I think people generally are fine with there being a Pride month. Of course, they're fine with the Pride events that go on. Sure, absolutely. But when it was a private sponsorship thing, when Pride could thrive off of the support they were getting from the business community, not getting taxpayer dollar handouts. Olivia Chow's going to double down and give them even more to make up what RBC and Home Depot and all these other companies have pulled out. Can we talk about that before the money gets spent? Can we have a conversation about that? How can she just arbitrarily do that with your tax dollars? I do want to have a chat about that. I want to know why extremists are part of the Pride movement all of a sudden. Causes that have nothing to do with 2S LGBTQ plus initiatives. Nothing to do with it whatsoever. Why are they involved in Pride all of a sudden? That's not what Pride was set up to be. And now we're funding it as taxpayers? I have a real issue with that. But friends, I'm out of time for today. Glad I got to do a little bit of politics. I'm glad I got a chance to weigh in on some of the things that are being discussed on a national level. I hope that we get things done with stealth and speed and really prioritize the things that are going to make a difference in the short term and in the long term. I think that the government needs to be transparent with us about how much these things are going to cost and where the money is going to come from. And if it needs to be this way, we need to have a referendum. If the government can't find any business that wants to fund this pipeline and they say we're going to have to spend $100 billion to do it, can we have a referendum, please? Let's all agree that that's what we want to do. We, the people, should make these decisions. Let's have a referendum on all of these national interest projects. They're not all equal. Is every province going to get something from their list? Is Ontario going to get more than one? Is Alberta going to get more than one? What about BC and some of the other big provinces? What's in this for Quebec? Is it going to be fair, or is it going to be what's truly in the national interest? Because if we do that, it's not necessarily going to be fair. Less photo ops, less administrative burden. Let's get shovels in the ground and let's be transparent with the public and let's do it quick. Have yourselves a great day, friends. I will catch you right back here tomorrow. I will have much more on Silent Date Guy then. And today I'll leave you with the sounds of Pat James and The Whole Truth. Hey now.